The Trail of Tears, A Lesson in History by Mr. Drake, U.S. History Class. The 5 civilized tribes of the Trail of Tears were the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, and the Seminole. Before 1800, the traditional range of the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole included all of present-day southeast United States. One Indian tribe that is not included in the 5 civilized tribes is the Osage, and they already lived in the designated Indian Territory. Between 1800 and 1830, the Choctaw signed 8 separate treaties, each time forced to give up more of their traditional homelands, and their land holdings became smaller and smaller. The U.S. signed these treaties because of increasing population. Under the leadership of President Andrew Jackson, in 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act. The Indian Removal Act basically told Indians they would forfeit their land in the southeast U.S. and be moved to Indian Territory, which would be a designated land west of the Mississippi. In September of 1830, the Choctaw signed the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek, which became the first removal treaty enacted under the authority of the Indian Removal Act. Soon after, all southeast tribes were forced to endure the long journey that would eventually be known as the Trail of Tears. As I said in the previous slide, we were talking about where the 5 tribes were located. Here I got a map for you guys, right here. There we go. Here's a map. So we've got the Seminole tribe is located here in Florida. Follow the lightsaber. They're located here in Florida. Then you scoot up here to number 2, and this is the Creek area. So they've got part of Georgia and part of Alabama. Then we scoot over here to the number 3, which is the Choctaw Territory. They have Mississippi and just a little part of Alabama. Then we jump up to the Chickasaw Territory above, number 4, which is part of Tennessee, part of Mississippi. Looks like a little West Virginia in there. Then we scoot over to number 5, and that is your Cherokee Territory, which take up part of Tennessee, part of Alabama, or part of Georgia and Alabama. Yeah. I want to talk for a moment on how did Manifest Destiny influence the Trail of Tears. Before we get too far into it, let me define Manifest Destiny for you. Manifest Destiny is a term for the attitude prevalent during the 19th century period of American expansion that the United States not only could, but was destined to stretch from coast to coast. This attitude helped fuel the Western settlement. Alright, so Manifest Destiny is basically the new Americans believing that it was their God-given right to move all the way across the country and just to keep expanding. So how this affected the Trail of Tears is because the new Americans believed that they needed to move the Native Americans away from where they were going. So basically they just saw the Native Americans as a roadblock, as an obstacle, something they had to take care of and what they believed was theirs. So in 1831, the Choctaw tribe became the model of relocation for Native Americans. They were the first to be removed, and soon after, the Seminoles and the Chickasaw were removed as well. So in a previous slide, I showed you where the Indians were located at. So in this map, I'm going to show you how the routes they traveled. Here are some of the routes that were traveled. So the Seminoles came from Florida, and they made their way, some by water, into New Orleans and then up. Then you've got all these guys going all the other directions. So that's an idea of where they came from and the routes they traveled. They traveled over 1,000 miles, most of them. There were 46,000 Indians removed. That's an estimation. We'll never know the exact number. Well, it's estimated that between 4,000 and 8,000 died. That's a large number. 4,000 to 8,000 Indians died during the Trail of Tears. Let's say the estimations are correct and it's 46,000 Indians were moved. And let's say the assumption of 8,000 died. That's 17, almost 18% of every Indian that went on the journey died. That's almost 20%. So that's 1 out of every 5 Native American that traveled on the Trail of Tears died. It is also estimated that 4,000 of those deaths were by Cherokee. The Cherokee were the very last of the 5 to start the journey, but it's estimated that 4,000, so half of all the deaths that occur are from the Cherokee people. Many of you have to be thinking, how did we let this happen as a country, and who is to blame? This is a really good question. There was a Supreme Court case entitled Worcester v. Georgia. In the Supreme Court decision, they decided that it was unconstitutional to have non-Native Americans being present on Native American lands without a license from the state. The Chief Justice in this trial was Chief Justice John Marshall. He laid out his opinion, and he ruled that individual states had no authorities in American Indian affairs. That should be it, right? The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do anything with it. But one of the main things that happened is Andrew Jackson responds with, John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it. That is one of the biggest quotes from the Trail of Tears and from Andrew Jackson's presidency. He is basically telling Chief Justice John Marshall that, if you think you can make that ruling and stop me, then you go ahead and try. So, who is to blame then? In my opinion, Andrew Jackson is to blame. But also, you can blame Manifest Destiny and America wanting to expand way beyond our means. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation for you. Tomorrow in class we will talk about this more and we'll go into more depth and I'll give you some more details and stuff like that. But right now what I've got for you, I've got a little assignment. I would like it if you would list 10 facts on a piece of paper just like this. I want you to set it up exactly how I'm setting it up on this piece of paper right here. Shouldn't be too difficult. 10 facts or something you found interesting. Really, it can just be about anything. Also, so that's part 1. Part 2, I want you to write me 2 to 3 sentences describing how Manifest Destiny related to the Trail of Tears. So some sentences just like this. Just 2 to 3, nothing too big. Shouldn't be too difficult. And number 3, again, I want you to set it up just like this. Number 3, I want your opinion on, do you think the Trail of Tears could happen today or something similar to it? Describe it in a paragraph form. So then you write some more. You might need to use the front and back of a piece of paper. That's fine. We'll turn these in tomorrow and we'll go over some of them and have a big class discussion on it. Get some sleep and I'll see you guys tomorrow.